Welcome back, guys. In today's video, we're going to talk about the setback that the planning board is recommending to the Sanford City Council. Currently, the setback is 15 to 25 feet, an average of about 20 feet. So the planning board is going to recommend to the City Council 75 feet. The neighbors requested on multiple occasions 200 plus feet. So we're going to talk about all of that, the 50-foot vegetative buffer. So that's a lot to cover, and I'm going to get after it right now. If you're new to this channel, my name is Michael Patterson, and my wife Bonnie and I are trying to build a campground on 113 acres that we purchased here in Sanford, Maine. So if you'd like to learn everything that we're doing to try to get this campground approved, click subscribe and tap the bell so that you'll be the first to know when we post another video. So it's been a few months and several heated presentations to the planning board and the City Council about the campground coming into the neighborhood. This 113 acres immediately butts on land, about 20 neighbors, most of whom were encroaching, which is why we put up this fence to put an end to that. The neighbors, of course, don't want the campground. They don't want anything back here, housing or anything like that. The housing is a possibility. The new state law in Maine allows for mobile homes on any residential lot, so we could rent out mobile homes as high-end cabins. We do something really nice, but still really hoping to do a campground. And so we had a round of meetings with the planning board to discuss the new setbacks. The current setback is 15 to 25 feet with an average of 20 from the property line. So it'd be like from this fence, which is 2 feet on my property line, it would be 18 feet in that direction. And what's happening is the neighbors push really hard for 200, 250 foot buffers, which I'd lose a ton of land because of that. And the planning board decided on 75 with a 50-foot vegetative buffer, which I already have. So we're hoping that the process is going to wrap up in November with the council making a final decision. They may decide to extend it for another 6 months, which they can certainly do if they feel like they need more information, or they do not have to go with what the planning board recommends for a setback. They can come up with a 200-foot setback or a 40-foot setback, or leave it the way it is. It's really, you learn a lot, trying to get something like this approved with the town. So what I want to do today is take you to see some of these pieces of property, what it looks like, and what a 75-foot setback from the neighbors is going to virtually eliminate my ability to use my waterfront property for cabins. So let's go take a look at that. Okay, so let's take a look at this first piece of property that we own that it's part of the 113 acres that abuts the waterfront. Our house is 100 feet on the other side of our property line. So there's one lot that separates us from the property. And one of the things the neighbors are trying to push on the planning board and the City Council is that the people who own the campground have to live on it. And they're doing that because they're basically trying to throw more wrenches into our attempt to get a campground approved. When really I think it should come down to if something happens on the campground, that there is a response time within so many minutes, like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Because we're right here. We're going to be driving this side by side. So, all right, I digress on that. You can see right here, I've got this orange marker. And what that does is mark 100 feet back from the water. And I'm just going to go a little bit closer to the water. I'm about 85 feet. And you can see there's a white fence there. It's about 75 feet away. And over there, you can see the white corral fence that I put up. And that is about 75 feet away. So what that does is basically eliminates our ability to use this property for a campground. And that's precisely what the neighbors are trying to do, because, they don't even want us using the water. They're making a lot of claims that more swimmers and paddle boarders in the water are going to hurt the ecology of the pond. And I've made many, many videos about this, about how more swimmers and paddle boarders, according to the Department of Environmental Protection in Maine, is not going to hurt the pond. It's the damage that the neighbors are doing, the way they clear cut And I don't need to add more videos of that, more pictures of that. Maybe I will, but it's just, I've talked about it ad nauseum, that they're just pushing that more swimmers and paddleboarders will destroy the pond. And it's really their septic systems and their clear cutting. And even, it's kind of upsetting because I hear these people in the meetings talking about how they don't want us destroying the pond, but I actually have footage of them, and I hear their chainsaws and I see the stumps, and I'll post that picture so you can see that these people are actively cutting on the short front, and it's against the law. It's amazing. And they're saying that we're going to destroy the pond. Okay, I'll make sure I point out on the map, this is the second piece of property. It's right in the middle that we have that goes down to the water. This is the biggest piece, 200 and some odd feet of frontage. So I would actually have some space to put a few RV sites down to the water here. At a 75-foot setback, remember, the council could make it 200 and then eliminate our ability to use this piece of frontage on the water as well. I also want to point out that this road right here, my wife and I own it. And we put up that white fence because the neighbors kept dragging debris onto our property and had been doing it for years. And we wanted to put an end to it because the encroaching, like I said, 20 neighbors, and over half of them were encroaching on our property with even household garbage, shingles from construction sites and things like that. What I want to show you about this property is I'll head down towards the water. I'm in the process of putting in the fence. Brand new neighbor over here on the left, he took on this system. Septic system is 45 years old, grown in, and hopefully they'll replace it because it's sagging. It was all documented online. And if I think of it, I'll add that to this video too, so you can see this public information at this point. All right, so you can see I'm headed down to the water. And you might be able to see those fence posts behind me. That's the fence that we're putting in. And, as I came down here and started putting in the fence, more garbage. And, but anyway, I won't keep driving home that point that they're throwing garbage all over our property. Same with this neighbor way over here. But it's just absolutely beautiful, guys. I don't know if you can hear that goose out there. And I really wanted to be able to use this property for the campground, because when people go camping, a huge percentage of people, it's like 70% of people choose a campsite based on location. They want to be close to the bathroom. They want to be close to the water, maybe the pool, maybe the game area. So, it's just really kind of a bummer that, I guess I can try to do something else with the frontage, maybe, but I don't want to digress on that too much in this video. We'll leave that for another video, but, really would like to use this property for the campground. All right, now let's head over to the third piece of property that we have that goes down to the water. That's well over 100 feet. And take a look at that. All right, before I get to the third piece that goes down to the water, I just want to point out here that, see all this, there's no buffer here at all, no vegetated buffer. And that's because, they just clear cut it. They clear cut it onto our property. Actually, this fence is 5 feet onto our property. And, out of the 6 abutters that we have of these 3 properties that go down to the water, pieces of land, only one of them, the one I just came from, and that's only because she just purchased it from the prior owner before we bought it. They had clear cut to the property line as well, so they gained some buffer. But, these people are like, oh, we don't want to look at a campground. We don't want to see RVs next to us. And the point that I've been trying to make is that, well, guys, you cleared your buffer. I mean, you just took down everything right to the shoreline, which is not allowed at all today. Even their shed there is like, I don't know if that's even 10 feet from our property line. Maybe it's 15. I have no idea. I'd have to measure it. But I just want to point out that, they have more privacy if they hadn't cut anything down, or if they let it grow back, or if they plant some trees, or let me plant some trees on their property. But I'm sure they don't want me on their property. So, all right, let's head down now to the third piece of land that goes all the way down to the water. Okay, so we are at the third piece of the land that goes all the way down to the water. You can see that's the end of Siddle Road right there, and I'll make sure I point that out on the map where I am so you can get an idea of what's going on here. And you can see that this neighbor over here, he built, 15 feet. He bought that house actually, so it was the prior owner that, did what he did. But he did have a patio that was built, and I asked him to get that off our property. And he was storing his boats and stuff like that on our property. So you notice we've got a white fence going all the way down to the water down there. So at any rate, if a 75-foot buffer comes into play, let's see if you can see that other cottage on the other side, and I'll take you over there as well. That will also eliminate, a 75-foot setback will eliminate our ability to use this piece of land for RVs or cabins down to the water. I'll have to do something else with the property if I wanted to, do that. So I hope you guys are finding this informative. And leave a comment down below if you think that, or you just have a comment that you think would allow me to maybe have a better understanding of where these people are coming from. Because when we have these meetings with the town, like the other campground owners show up because they're like, hey, we have some land and we want to expand our campground. And now these new setbacks are basically taking land away from us. And there's nobody necessarily on the other side of the buffer. But that's not something you can get grandfathered for, because the setback's going to affect those guys too. So anyway, let's go down and take a look at that. I want you to see how this guy's been encroaching on my property. Okay, here we are at the end of the property, and so I planted a whole bunch of scrub oaks in this area because this neighbor had done a tremendous amount of clearing on our property. And even down here, I'll turn the camera around. You can see that this neighbor was cutting on our property, and we put the fence up. The fence is 2 feet on our, 1.5 feet, 2 feet on our property. But you can see us putting crushed stone in there, and we'll probably have to plant some trees and stuff in there. And there's no buffer to his cottage because he cut it all down. And he inherited this or purchased this cottage off his dad. And just look at the shoreline. The damage that they've done, they're doing to the pond's ecology. And this north end of the pond's really bad. A lot of these septic systems are way too close to the water. And these are some of the people that are fighting the most fierce to stop the campground as well. So I'll take you down to the water so you get an idea of how just beautiful it is. And everywhere you walk along here, there's obviously some muck initially, but it's all sandy all the way around the pond. So I will never be able to have a beach, but I will be able to have paths and a dock so that campers will be able to go fishing and enjoy the water. Just an absolutely beautiful day. Okay, so this neighbor, he obviously wants major buffers so that he can prevent me from using this piece of land for RV sites. And that's his choice, I guess. But they're supposed to be making a case to update the ordinance in general for the good of the entire town. And one of the things that I'm on the comprehensive plan committee for the town is that 20 years ago, when they created the comprehensive plan, that they made a point that the town needs to attract businesses and things like that to help with taxes, because Sanford is in danger of becoming like a lower income community, which it kind of has. So more businesses in town, especially high-end campgrounds, would be really good, I think, for the community. So ridiculous setbacks like 200 feet would really hurt me, and I have to seriously consider alternatives to a campground like a mobile home development, because it'll allow me to monetize the land the way I want to and still rent properties and allow people to use the pond and things like that. So it's just really unfortunate that the neighbors are being like this. And one of the other things that I want to point out too in this video is I can create public access to the pond by, coming down from Sandy Point Road, and I'll show you that in a second. And that way, people who in town or in the surrounding towns want to come visit the pond and utilize Sand Pond, because there's no public access right now. So that's one of the things that that I could do to maybe make the campground more attractive to the community or to the town, is by creating public access. So I haven't done that yet. Not sure I really want to, but what do you think? Should I create public access for the greater community to get to Sand Pond? I'm sure some of my neighbors wouldn't like that, and probably that abutter right there wouldn't like it very much. But I'm trying to think outside the box and come up with ideas that the town might like. All right, let's head on over to Sandy Point Road, and on the way I'll stop and I'll show you just how thick the brush is getting where I cut in this area. Actually, I won't even turn the camera off. So I'm 6 foot tall, and you can see that a lot of these bushes that I cut down 2 years ago, they're already as tall as me. So by next year, they'll be 8 feet, which is one of the things about within the 75 feet, there has to be a 50-foot buffer is being recommended by the planning board. And so a lot of these plants will be at 8 feet next summer. The problem is that it isn't this thick everywhere on the property. So I do have a spade, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. It allows me to grab some of these plants and scoop them up and replant them, so that if there are places that I don't quite meet that 50-foot vegetated buffer, I'll be able to fill it in so that I comply with the new ordinance. Okay, I'll make sure I point out on the map where I am. This is the corner of our property, and all the way up there you can see it's mowed and maintained, either the neighbors on this road. I actually own a huge amount of this road as well. I could create parking here so that people could get down to the pond. So like I said, I have plenty of parking, plenty of land down there, and I'd really appreciate what anyone in the Sanford community or surrounding communities thinks about whether or not they think that would benefit the area. Because one of the other reasons I might do it is the neighbors are complaining that their real estate values are going to go down because of a campground, and I know that's not true, but they're trying to point that out, and I'm tracking Zillow and Realtor.com, and I know the real estate prices are going up everywhere. And so if I grant public access to the pond, what that would allow is for hopefully offset any impact to real estate values. Like I said, I put the parking over there because I own a lot of land that way as well as the road. All right, let's keep going. Okay, I'll make sure I point out on the map again where I am. And I don't have any plans really to develop this part of the property, because my wife and I aren't trying to build a massive campground, even though we have plenty of land to put in several hundred sites. I guess the plan could change, depending on what the new setbacks are. But what I want to point out here is I have to stay 100 feet back from the wetlands, and we have 25 acres of wetland. A lot of it is white cedar forest. So very thick buffer. So I'm well over 1,000 feet up to Route 4. And I want to show you some footage of that white cedar forest. Absolutely gorgeous. I think the people who stay at our campground, if we build a campground, are going to love taking a walk out there to look at it and smell it. It smells awesome. All right, here's the white cedar forest, guys. You can tell it looks kind of bizarre, almost like Jurassic Parkish, just beautiful. And so this gets really wet in this area every spring. And the I do have some vernal pools. Only one of them is significant. And that if it's significant, you have to stay 250 feet back from it. Since it's in the middle of the swamp, I'm even more than that far back from it, from land that I could actually do something with. So I think that this, even though we lost a lot of land to the wetlands because we have to stay 100 feet back from the wetlands all the way around, just like we would the pond, I think it's an asset to Campground because, you know, people are going to want to hike. And so the DEP told me I could have a trail around, you know, so that people could enjoy. They actually want that, you know, people coming and checking out these areas and appreciating what they have. Kind of like the pond, you know, they want people using the pond, swimming in the pond and things like that. What they don't want is septic systems too close to the water and clear cutting at the water's edge, because there's already been so much of that on Sand Pond. And as pointed out in my other videos, if you look at my own home, you know, 20 years ago I bought the land. I have 200 feet of frontage. I'm very fortunate. I bought 2 lots, and I kept it all foliaged, you know, so it's like really, really thick, and I can see squirrels in there and birds, and we get lightning bugs and things like that when we're looking out, you know, through the trees at the water. And we have good privacy too for people that are canoeing and fishing and things like that. And they like it too, because it's more beautiful when they're swimming and kayaking and boating around the pond if they've got some privacy from the cottage that's right there. So if the neighbor cut all that down, you know, it's kind of like, it just kind of destroys the natural beauty when the abutters did that to with their cottages. Okay, now what we're doing is, I'll show you on the map, basically heading on over to the other end of the property, close to Country Club 2, because I want to show you what the buffer looks like over there, because I think it might surprise some of you. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on in this area. You can see that 6-foot privacy fence again behind me. I'll point out on the map where we are again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk 100 feet back from that privacy fence. Remember, the privacy fence is 2 feet on our property. So this is 100 feet. And you might be thinking, wow, there's no privacy, you know, from that. I mean, if the privacy fence wasn't there, they'd be able to see, you know, RVs and things like that really, really well. Well, what I want to point out to you guys is I didn't cut this, and neither did the prior owner. That abutter cut this land, cleared it all out because they wanted to basically have some type of view, you know, of the trees, and the deer would come in there. Maybe it was feeding the deer. I have no idea. But, you know, all of this clear cutting was done by this neighbor. And I don't just have one neighbor that did this. I have several neighbors that did this. So now they want, you know, I tried to use post and rail on the other side of the property. You saw a lot of that in this video, because privacy fence is really, you know, some people like it, some people don't. And we had a big problem over here. So we decided to put the privacy fence in, you know, stop people from coming on the property and dumping the trash, you know, construction, grass clippings. And I'm talking massive, massive piles of leaves and trees. And I actually helped many of them clean it up and help them burn it and things like that. And I didn't mind doing it because I was trying to be a nice guy and things like that. And in hindsight, in hindsight, I have no regrets helping them. But, you know, now that some of these people are fighting us on the campground because they want privacy, or they feel like we're going to hurt the pond, and it's just hypocrisy. I just don't understand, you know. They use no facts from scientists, from the Department of Environmental Protection, nothing. Everything that they claim is based on pure opinion, which I agree has some value, but they're not trying to update the ordinance for the entire town that it will impact the other existing campgrounds. As Brian Dumont pointed out, and I'll make sure I play that clip for you guys, that the goal of the Sand Pond Association is to stop the campground. It's not to try to update the ordinance. And
We are an association, loosely held, but still an association, with the same intent, and that is to stop the campground.
He's a very outspoken person against us trying to build this campground here. And what he's pushing for is also going to hurt the other campgrounds that still want to expand. You know, guys, if you had a bad experience with a campground next to you, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'd like to know about it, because really, the thing you have to remember about campers is they have to follow rules, right? My wife and I will lay out some rules, you know, no barking dogs, no loud noises after the town ordinance, I think is 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever it is. But you know, I hear barking dogs all the time on the pond, and they're from neighbors, and they bark constantly. And you know, the only thing I can do is call the police, and if the dog isn't barking when the police show up, they're like, hey, I'm sorry, you know. Oh, I wanted to point out that one of the things I'm really excited about is these trees. I put orange markers on them on about 30 trees, and I have over 100 maple trees. They're not sugar maples. They're, I think they're black maples. They don't give quite as much sap, but you can still make maple syrup with them. So I didn't know if any of the listeners out there have any experience with tapping maple trees that aren't necessarily sugar maples. And if you have any recommendations for me, because I'm going to tap these in March or February, whenever the sap starts running, and try to make some maple syrup. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'll probably do a video on it, and any feedback from you guys would be fantastic. Thanks. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up, finish this video. I really appreciate you guys listening, and any comments down below I would really appreciate. I'm going to go over and talk to this gentleman who I've invited people on Facebook to grab all this pine that I fell down during the winter. So we're going to get it out of here, and I'm giving it away for free. So if you're looking for wood in Sanford, this pine, I usually chop it up into 16 inches. And if you're looking for that, give us a call. So anyway, if you want to learn more about what it's like to try to build a campground in Maine, watch this next video.